I heard them before I saw them. The front door of my apartment swung open. No knock, no doorbell, just the scrape of a key I never gave permission to copy. And my mother-in-law's voice rang through the hallway like she owned the place. "Brandon, honey, tell her we're here. She'll whip something up. You know how she is. She can't help herself." And then my husband's voice, casual, almost bored. "Mom, don't worry. She'll feed us now. So what if I yelled at her this morning? I'll apologize just for show, and she'll run to the kitchen like always." I was standing 6 feet from the front door, in the living room, holding a glass of iced tea. I heard every single word. But here's the thing. They didn't see what I'd done to the apartment yet. They didn't see the empty kitchen. They didn't see the bare walls where our wedding photos used to hang. They didn't notice the suitcases lined up by the bedroom door, packed tight and zipped shut. My mother-in-law, Karen, and yes, her name really is Karen, the universe has a sense of humor, stepped inside first. She was already slipping off her shoes, already scanning the room with that look she always had, that inventory look, like she was mentally rearranging my furniture. Then she froze. Brandon walked in behind her. He had that half smile he always wore after he'd been cruel to me, the one that said, "I know you'll forgive me. You always do." That smile died on his face. They both stood there for exactly 3 seconds. I counted. 1, 2, 3. Then they bolted, both of them, back through the door, stumbling over each other, like the apartment was on fire, like they'd seen a ghost. But it wasn't a ghost. It was just me, standing in my own living room, finally not apologizing. Let me tell you how I got here. 3 years ago, I was the happiest woman in Cedar Falls, Iowa. At least, that's what I believed. That's what I told my friends, my coworkers, my mom on our Sunday phone calls. I'm so lucky, I'd say, and I meant it with my whole chest. My name is Ashley Brennan. Well, Ashley Tate now, though not for much longer. And when I married Brandon Tate in June of 2020, I thought I'd won the lottery. Not the financial kind, the emotional kind. The kind where you find a person who looks at you like you're the only woman in the room, who texts you good morning every single day, who surprises you with sunflowers because he remembered you mentioned them once on your 3rd date. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue in Des Moines. I was 26, working as a dental hygienist at a family practice near Merle Hay Road. He was 28, doing project management for a mid-size construction company. He had this way of listening, really listening, where he'd tilt his head slightly and his eyes would soften, and you felt like whatever you were saying was the most important thing anyone had ever said. I fell for him in about 11 minutes. We dated for a year and a half. He proposed on a covered bridge in Madison County. Cheesy, romantic, perfect. I said yes before he even finished the question. My mom cried. His mom smiled. At the time, I thought Karen's smile was warm. Looking back, it was more like satisfaction, like a chess player watching a pawn move exactly where she wanted it. The wedding was small, 42 guests at a barn venue outside Waterloo. My dad walked me down the aisle. Brandon's best man, Tyler, gave a toast about how Brandon had finally found someone who'd put up with him. Everyone laughed. I laughed loudest. I didn't understand the joke yet. After the wedding, we moved into a 2-bedroom apartment on West 4th Street. Rent was $1,150 a month, split from our joint account. I made about $52,000 a year. Brandon made around $61,000. Together, we were comfortable. Not rich, but stable. We had a little savings account with about $8,400 in it, a decent credit score. Mine was 741, his was 689, and a 5-year plan that included buying a house, maybe starting a family by the time I turned 30. I loved that apartment. I painted the kitchen wall a soft sage green. I found a vintage farmhouse table at a flea market in Waverly and refinished it myself, sanded it down, stained it honey oak, sealed it with 3 coats of polyurethane. I hung copper pots on a rack above the stove, even though I only used 2 of them regularly. I wanted it to look like one of those kitchens you see on Pinterest, the kind that makes you feel like everything is warm and good and exactly where it should be. And I cooked. God, did I cook. That was my thing, my love language, my therapy. I'd come home from 8 hours of scraping plaque off strangers' teeth, and I'd tie on my apron, the blue one with the little lemons, and I'd lose myself in the rhythm of chopping onions, searing chicken, simmering sauces, beef bourguignon on Sundays, homemade pasta on Wednesdays, fresh bread every Saturday morning, the kind where you have to start the dough the night before. Brandon loved it, or at least he loved the results. He'd come home, drop his work bag by the door, and say, "Smells incredible, babe. What are we having?" And I'd beam. I'd literally beam. Because feeding someone you love, watching them close their eyes on the first bite, watching them reach for seconds, that felt like proof. Proof that I was enough. Proof that this life we'd built was real. Looking back, I see the pattern now. He never once asked if I was tired. Never once said, "Hey, you've been on your feet all day. Let me handle dinner." Never once offered to chop a single onion. He just expected it, the way you expect the lights to turn on when you flip a switch. You don't thank the electricity. But I didn't see it then. I was too busy being grateful. The first 8 months of our marriage were genuinely good. We'd watch movies on Friday nights, sharing a bowl of popcorn I made on the stove with real butter. We'd go for walks along the Cedar River on weekends. He'd hold my hand. We'd talk about baby names. He liked Ethan for a boy. I liked Nora for a girl. We compromised that we'd figure it out when the time came. It felt like partnership. Then Karen started visiting. Now, let me be fair. Every marriage has in-law dynamics. Every mother has opinions about her son's wife. I knew that going in. My own mom warned me, "Be patient with his mother, Ash. She raised him. She's going to have feelings about sharing him." Good advice. Wise advice. Advice that assumed a normal mother-in-law. Karen Tate was not a normal mother-in-law. She lived 40 minutes away in Waterloo, close enough to visit, but far enough that it should have required planning. Should have. For the first few months after the wedding, she'd call before coming over. She'd bring a bottle of wine or a pie from the bakery on Kimball Avenue. She'd compliment the apartment. She'd tell me my pot roast was interesting, which I later learned was her way of saying she didn't like it but couldn't find a specific flaw. Around month 9, the visits became more frequent, once a week, then twice. Then she got a copy of our key. "Brandon gave it to me," she said cheerfully when I asked about it, standing in my kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon while I was still in my scrubs, exhausted, not expecting company. "For emergencies." I looked at Brandon. He shrugged. "It's just in case, Ash. What if we lock ourselves out?" That's when I should have said something. That's when a smarter woman, a woman who hadn't spent her whole life being taught that nice was the highest compliment a girl could earn, would have drawn a line. But I smiled. I nodded. I made Karen a cup of coffee and asked about her week. She started rearranging things, small things at first. She moved the sugar canister from the left side of the counter to the right. She reorganized my spice rack alphabetically, which ruined my system of grouping them by cuisine. She folded the bathroom towels into thirds instead of halves and told me thirds look more elegant. I mentioned it to Brandon one night, trying to keep my voice light. "Your mom moved my spices again." He didn't look up from his phone. "She's just trying to help, babe." "I know, but it's my kitchen. I had them organized a certain way." "Don't make it a thing, Ashley." Don't make it a thing. I'd hear that phrase so many times over the next 2 years that it started to feel like a wall, smooth, featureless, impossible to climb. Every concern I raised, every boundary I tried to set, every time I opened my mouth to say, "This doesn't feel right," don't make it a thing. So I didn't make it a thing. I rearranged my spices back after she left. I refolded my towels. I moved the sugar canister. And the next time Karen came over, she moved everything again. And we did our little silent dance, and nobody said a word about it. But here's the detail that sits in my stomach like a stone, even now. One evening, about a year into our marriage, I came home late from work. A patient had an emergency, and I'd stayed an extra hour. I was tired. My feet ached. My lower back was screaming. All I wanted was to shower and maybe heat up leftovers. I walked in and heard laughter from the kitchen. Brandon and Karen were sitting at my farmhouse table, the one I'd refinished with my own hands, eating dinner. Karen had cooked. She'd made her meatloaf, the one she always bragged about, using my pans, my oven, my kitchen. "Oh, Ashley," she said brightly, "I didn't know when you'd be home, so I just went ahead and made dinner for my boy. There's some left if you want." Some left, if I want, in my own kitchen, in my own home. Brandon had a full plate. He was eating happily, the way he ate when I cooked for him. That same closed eyes first bite, that same reach for seconds. "Thanks, Karen," I said. "That was really nice of you." I took a small plate of her meatloaf to the living room and ate it alone on the couch. It was dry, under-seasoned, but Brandon had eaten 2 helpings like it was the best thing he'd ever tasted. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and tried to name the feeling curling through my chest. It wasn't anger, not exactly. It was something quieter, something that whispered, "You are being replaced, and no one is going to tell you." I pushed the thought away. I told myself I was being dramatic, oversensitive, that Karen was just a loving mother and Brandon was just a man who loved his mom's cooking, and none of this was worth losing sleep over. But I did lose sleep, that night and many nights after, because something had shifted, something I couldn't quite see yet, like a crack in a foundation hidden under fresh paint. The apartment still smelled like sage and cinnamon. The copper pots still gleamed above the stove. Brandon still said, "Smells incredible, babe," when he walked through the door. But one evening, about a week after the meatloaf incident, he said something that made me pause mid-stir. I was making chicken marsala, his favorite. He was leaning against the counter, scrolling his phone. "Hey, Ash, my mom's coming for dinner Saturday." "Okay," I said. "I'll plan something nice." She mentioned she wants to bring her green bean casserole, and maybe her rolls. I turned to look at him. I was going to make rolls. "Yeah, but hers are, the ones I grew up with." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. The ones I grew up with. The ones that are better. The ones that are real. I turned back to the stove. The marsala sauce was bubbling. My hand was steady. My voice was steady. Everything was steady. "Sure," I said. "Tell her to bring whatever she wants." He kissed the top of my head. "You're the best, babe." I stirred the sauce. I didn't say another word, but somewhere deep in my chest, in a place I didn't have a name for yet, something tightened, a thread pulled taut, a warning bell so faint I almost missed it. Almost. Saturday came and Karen arrived with her green bean casserole and her rolls. She also brought a pecan pie, which I hadn't been told about, and a Tupperware container of something she called Brandon's favorite potato salad, the real recipe, not the one from the internet. I'd spent 3 hours making herb-crusted lamb chops with roasted garlic mashed potatoes and a from-scratch gravy that I'd reduced twice for depth. The kitchen smelled incredible. I'd set the table with the nice plates, the white ones with the thin gold rim that we'd gotten from my Aunt Linda as a wedding gift. Karen walked in, surveyed the table, and said, "Oh, how fancy. You didn't have to go to all this trouble, Ashley. My casserole and rolls would have been plenty." I smiled. I wanted to make something special. "Well," she set her dishes on the counter, right on top of the cutting board I was using. "Brandon, honey, come try Mama's potato salad before it gets warm." Brandon appeared from the living room, grabbed a spoon, and dug straight into the Tupperware. "Oh, man," he said, mouthful. "This is the stuff right here. Ash, you gotta try this." I looked at my lamb chops resting on the cutting board that was now pinned under Karen's casserole dish. "Sure," I said. "In a minute." Dinner was a performance. Karen narrated every dish she'd brought like a cooking show host. "Now this casserole, I use fresh green beans, not canned. That's the secret. And these rolls, I let them rise 3 times. Most people only do 2. That's why theirs are dense." She never mentioned my lamb. Not once. Brandon had 2 helpings of her potato salad and 1 small lamb chop, which he ate without comment. At the end of the meal, Karen patted Brandon's hand and said, "Doesn't it feel good to have a home-cooked meal? A real one?" She looked at me when she said real. Just a flicker of her eyes, just a half second. But I caught it, and she knew I caught it. I cleared the table. I washed the dishes. I packed up Karen's empty Tupperware and handed it back to her with a smile. She left at 9:30, kissing Brandon on the cheek, telling him to take care of himself, as if I weren't standing right there, as if I weren't the one who cooked and cleaned and held this apartment together with both hands. After she left, I sat on the edge of the bed and pressed my palms into my eyes. Brandon was brushing his teeth in the bathroom, humming. "Hey," I called out. "Can we talk about tonight?" He appeared in the doorway, toothbrush in hand. "What about it?" "Your mom brought 4 dishes. I'd already planned the whole meal. It felt like she was, I don't know, competing with me?" Brandon spit into the sink, rinsed, took his time. Then he leaned against the doorframe and gave me that look, the patient look, the one that made me feel like a child throwing a tantrum over nothing. "Ashley, she's my mother. She brought food. That's what mothers do. Why do you always have to turn it into something?" "I'm not turning it into something. I'm telling you how I felt. And I'm telling you it's not a big deal. You cooked, she cooked, everybody ate. What's the problem?" The problem was that I'd spent 3 hours on a meal that nobody acknowledged. The problem was that his mother walked into my kitchen like it was hers. The problem was that he couldn't or wouldn't see any of it. But I didn't say that. I said, "You're right. I'm sorry. It's fine." He came over, kissed my forehead. "Love you, babe. Don't overthink it." I lay awake that night listening to him snore, and I thought, I am disappearing. Slowly, quietly, like a photograph left in the sun. And nobody's going to notice until I'm gone. The escalation happened gradually, then all at once. Like debt, like rot, like the slow drip of a faucet you keep meaning to fix until the day the pipe bursts. By our 2nd anniversary, Karen had a standing schedule. Tuesdays and Saturdays, every single week. She'd let herself in with her copied key, sometimes while I was still at work, and I'd come home to find her in my kitchen, cooking, rearranging. Once, she'd taken down my sage green kitchen curtains and replaced them with white lace ones she'd bought at a Hobby Lobby in Waterloo. "They let in more light," she explained when I stood in the doorway, still in my scrubs, staring at my bare curtain rod. "Those green ones were so heavy, made the whole room feel dark." I looked at Brandon, who was sitting at the table eating a bowl of Karen's chili. He shrugged. "They do look brighter, Ash." I took the lace curtains down that night and put mine back up. The next Tuesday, Karen replaced them again. This time, she'd thrown my green curtains away. I found them in the dumpster behind our building, crumpled and stained with coffee grounds. That was the night I cried in the shower for the first time. Not the last. But here's the thing about slow erosion. You adapt. You normalize. You tell yourself stories to make the unacceptable acceptable. She's just old-fashioned. She means well. Brandon loves me. He just doesn't understand boundaries. It'll get better. It did not get better. In March of the following year, I got a promotion at the dental practice, lead hygienist, with a raise to $58,000. I was thrilled. I called Brandon from the parking lot, practically vibrating. "Babe, I got it, the lead position." "That's great, Ash. Hey, can you pick up milk on the way home? Mom's coming for dinner." No congratulations. No, I'm proud of you. No, let's celebrate. Just milk and Mom. I picked up the milk. I came home. Karen was already there, making her pot roast, the one she always said was Brandon's comfort food from when he was little. She'd used my Dutch oven without asking. I set the milk on the counter. "I got promoted today," I said, trying to keep the brightness in my voice. Karen glanced up from the stove. "Oh, that's nice, dear. Brandon, honey, can you hand me the rosemary? It's on the..." Oh, she moved the spice rack again. She, not Ashley. She. Brandon handed her the rosemary. Neither of them said another word about my promotion. I went to the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the floor between the bed and the wall. I called my mom. She picked up on the second ring. Ash, everything okay? I got promoted, Mom. Oh, honey, that's wonderful. Lead hygienist? I'm so proud of you. I pressed the phone against my ear and let her words fill the hollow space in my chest. She asked about the raise, about my new responsibilities, about whether they'd give me my own schedule. She cared. She actually cared. Are you okay? She asked after a pause. You sound tired. I'm fine, Mom. Just a long day. How's Brandon? Is he taking you out to celebrate? Yeah, I lied. We're going to that Italian place this weekend. We didn't go to any Italian place. That weekend, Karen came over on Saturday as usual, and Brandon suggested we all have dinner together, as a family. Karen made lasagna, in my kitchen, using my farmhouse table. Brandon ate 3 helpings and told her it was the best lasagna he'd ever had. I ate 1 helping. It was under-seasoned, just like everything she made. But I smiled, I complimented her, I washed the dishes. Then something happened that cracked the situation wide open. It was a Wednesday evening in April. I'd come home early, a canceled afternoon patient, and I was planning to surprise Brandon with his favorite chicken marsala. I parked in my usual spot, grabbed my bag, and walked up to the apartment. The door was unlocked. I could hear voices inside. I stepped in quietly, not sneaking exactly, just not announcing myself. The voices were coming from the kitchen. Brandon and Karen. She's getting too comfortable, Karen was saying. Her voice was low, conspiratorial, the kind of tone people use when they don't want to be overheard. That promotion's going to go to her head. You watch. Mom, come on. I'm serious, Brandon. She already thinks she runs this house. Now she's going to think she's better than us because she makes a little more money. You need to keep her grounded. I stood in the hallway, my keys still in my hand, my work bag hanging from my shoulder. Keep her grounded. Like I was a kite, like I was something that needed to be held down. She's fine, Mom. She's not like that. Not yet, but give it time. Women change when they start making money. Your father, God rest him, he always said, you let a woman think she's in charge, you lose the whole house. There was a pause. Then Brandon said quietly, so what do you think I should do? My blood went cold. Not because of what Karen said. I'd suspected for a long time that she saw me as a threat, an intruder in her son's life. But because of Brandon's question, so what do you think I should do? He was asking his mother for instructions on how to manage me, like I was a project at his construction company, like I was a problem to be solved. I backed out of the apartment. I closed the door silently. I sat in my car in the parking lot for 45 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, watching my knuckles turn white. When I finally went back inside, they were sitting on the couch watching TV. Karen smiled at me. There you are. We were wondering when you'd get home. I made Brandon a snack. Hope you don't mind I used the last of your cheddar. Not at all, I said. That night, I didn't cook. For the first time in our entire marriage, I said I wasn't feeling well and went to bed early. Brandon didn't check on me. Not once. At 10:30, I heard the front door close as Karen left, and then Brandon's footsteps coming down the hall. He poked his head into the bedroom. You okay? Mom made enough for leftovers if you're hungry. I'm fine. Okay, night, babe. He went to the living room. I heard the TV click on. ESPN. He watched SportsCenter until midnight while I lay in the dark, replaying his mother's words. Keep her grounded. Women change when they start making money. You let a woman think she's in charge, you lose the whole house. And his response? So what do you think I should do? I made a decision that night, a small one, but real. I opened my phone and searched. Marriage counseling, Cedar Falls, Iowa. I found a therapist named Dr. Rachel Nguyen with a 4.8-star rating on Google. Her office was on Main Street, 10 minutes from the dental practice. She accepted our insurance. I booked an appointment for the following week. I didn't tell Brandon. When I sat in Dr. Nguyen's office, a calm, plant-filled room with a white noise machine by the door, I meant to talk about Karen, about the curtains and the spice rack and the copied key. But when she asked me, "What brings you in today, Ashley?" what came out of my mouth was, "I don't think my husband sees me." She let the silence sit. Then she said, "Tell me more about that." And I did. For 50 minutes, I talked about the meatloaf dinner, the rolls, the promotion nobody celebrated, the overheard conversation, the phrase, "Don't make it a thing," the way I'd shrunk myself, corner by corner, until I fit into the small space they'd left for me. Dr. Nguyen didn't tell me to leave my husband. She didn't tell me Karen was toxic. She asked me one question that changed everything. "Ashley, when was the last time you did something in your own home without wondering if Brandon or Karen would approve?" I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She nodded, like that silence was exactly the answer she expected. I went home that day feeling something I hadn't felt in months, a tiny, flickering clarity, like cleaning a foggy mirror with your sleeve. The image wasn't sharp yet, but the outline was there. I decided to try. One more time. I would talk to Brandon, really talk to him, and if he heard me, if he truly heard me, then maybe we could fix this. Maybe Dr. Nguyen could see us as a couple. Maybe we could set boundaries with Karen together. I chose a Friday night. I made his favorite, chicken marsala, the good wine, candles on the farmhouse table. After dinner, I poured him a second glass and took a breath. "Brandon, I need to talk to you about something important." He set down his glass. "Okay." "I've been feeling like I'm losing myself in this marriage, like your mom has more say in our home than I do, and I need that to change." His jaw tightened. I watched the muscle flex near his ear. "This again?" "It's not this again. It's ongoing. She has a key to our apartment, Brandon. She rearranges my kitchen. She threw away my curtains. She threw away curtains? When?" "Months ago, the green ones. She put up lace ones and threw mine in the dumpster." He blinked. For a moment, just a moment, I thought I saw something. Surprise, maybe, or the beginning of understanding. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced down. His expression shifted. "Hold on," he said. "It's Mom." He picked up the phone. Right there, in the middle of the most important conversation of our marriage, he picked up the phone. "Hey, Mom. Yeah. No, we're just having dinner." "What?" "Yeah, Saturday works." "Sure, bring whatever you want. Love you too." He hung up, looked at me. "Sorry, what were you saying?" I stared at him across the candlelit table, across the chicken marsala I'd spent an hour making, across the farmhouse table I'd refinished with my own 2 hands. And I felt something shift inside me. Not a crack this time, but a clean break, like a bone snapping, painful but precise. "Nothing," I said. "Never mind." He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're overthinking again, Ash. Everything's fine. We're fine." We were not fine. And sitting there, watching the candle flame reflect in his indifferent eyes, I knew, with a certainty that settled into my bones like winter, that we never would be. I didn't try to talk to Brandon again after that Friday night. Not about Karen, not about boundaries, not about the curtains, or the spice rack, or the key. Something had closed inside me, a door I'd been holding open with both hands, begging him to walk through. He never did, so I let it shut. But I kept seeing Dr. Nguyen. Every Thursday at 4:30, I'd drive to her office on Main Street, sit in that plant-filled room, and peel back another layer of a marriage I was only beginning to see clearly. She gave me homework, journaling mostly. "Write down every interaction with Brandon and Karen that makes you feel small," she said. "Don't edit, don't justify, just record." I filled a notebook in 3 weeks. May brought something new. Brandon started criticizing my cooking. It started small, the way everything with him started small. A Tuesday night, I'd made shrimp scampi, butter, garlic, white wine, angel hair pasta, a dish I'd perfected over years. Brandon took one bite, set his fork down. "Did you change the recipe?" "No, same as always." "Huh." He pushed the shrimp around his plate. "Mom's version has more garlic, and she uses linguine, not angel hair." "Your mom makes shrimp scampi?" "She used to, when I was in high school." He shrugged. "This is fine, though." Fine. The word landed like a slap. I'd never gotten fine before. I'd gotten incredible and amazing and you should open a restaurant. Now I was getting fine. It happened again 3 days later. I made a pot of beef stew, hearty, rich, slow-cooked for 4 hours with red wine and fresh thyme. Brandon tasted it and said, "It's a little thin, don't you think? Mom uses tomato paste to thicken hers." And again, the following week, homemade pizza. The crust is kind of chewy. Mom rolls hers thinner. Every dish, every meal, measured against Karen's version and found lacking. I started second-guessing myself in my own kitchen, adding extra garlic because Brandon might complain, switching to linguine, using tomato paste in stew that didn't need it, changing recipes I'd spent years developing because a woman who underseasoned everything had somehow become the gold standard. Dr. Nguyen called it what it was. He's conditioning you, Ashley. Whether he's doing it consciously or not, he's training you to seek his approval, and by extension, his mother's approval, for something that used to be entirely yours. "My cooking," I whispered. "Your identity." That word hit me like a truck, because she was right. Cooking wasn't just something I did. It was who I was. The girl who brought homemade cinnamon rolls to every potluck. The friend who showed up with chicken soup when someone was sick. The wife who turned a Tuesday night into something special with nothing but a skillet and fresh herbs. Take that away, and what was left? I was about to find out. June 14th. I remember the date because it was a Wednesday, and I'd taken a half day off work to prepare for something I'd been planning for weeks. A surprise dinner for Brandon's 31st birthday. His actual birthday was the 16th, a Friday, but I wanted to get ahead of Karen, who I knew would try to commandeer the celebration. I'd been planning the menu for days. Filet mignon with a red wine reduction, truffle mashed potatoes, roasted asparagus with lemon zest, a 3-layer chocolate cake with ganache frosting that I'd stayed up until 1 a.m. baking the night before. I set the farmhouse table with the gold-rimmed plates. I put out cloth napkins. I lit the good candles, the ones from the boutique in downtown Cedar Falls that smelled like cedar and vanilla. I even bought a bottle of Caymus Cabernet, $47, which was an extravagance for us. At 5:15, I texted Brandon, "Come straight home after work. I have a surprise." He replied, "K." At 6:10, I heard the key in the lock. I was standing by the table, wearing the navy dress he'd told me he liked, my hair down, a smile on my face that I'd practiced in the bathroom mirror, because I wanted to look happy, genuinely happy, not desperate. The door opened. Brandon walked in. Karen was right behind him. "Surprise!" Karen sang out, holding a grocery bag. "I'm making my boy his birthday dinner, his favorite, my pot roast." I stood there in my navy dress, next to my candlelit table, next to my $47 bottle of wine, and I watched Karen walk past me into my kitchen like I was a piece of furniture. "Mom," Brandon said, and for 1 second I thought, I prayed he was going to tell her to leave, that he saw the table, the candles, the dress, that he understood. "Mom, you didn't have to do all this. Ash, you don't mind, right? She already bought everything." "I don't mind. She already bought everything." As if Karen's grocery bag outweighed the 3-layer chocolate cake cooling on the counter. As if her pot roast trumped filet mignon. As if I hadn't spent 2 days planning this. As if I didn't exist. "Of course I don't mind," I heard myself say. Karen was already in the kitchen. She opened my refrigerator, saw the fillets wrapped in butcher paper, and said, "Oh, were you going to cook too? That's sweet, but Brandon loves my pot roast. Don't you, honey?" "Yeah," he said. "The pot roast is kind of a tradition." I unwrapped my dress's sash and tied on my lemon apron instead. I put the fillets back in the fridge. I blew out the candles. I moved the gold-rimmed plates and replaced them with everyday ones. I watched Karen take over my kitchen, my stove, my pots, my cutting board, and I served her pot roast on my farmhouse table while she told stories about Brandon's childhood birthdays that I'd already heard 4 times. Brandon ate 2 helpings. He never mentioned the chocolate cake. It sat on the counter all night, untouched, 3 layers of ganache slowly losing their shine under the kitchen lights. After Karen left, I stood at the sink washing her dishes. Brandon came up behind me and kissed my neck. "Thanks for being cool about tonight, babe. I know you had something planned." I didn't turn around. "It's fine. Mom just gets excited about my birthday. You know how she is." I scrubbed a pot. My hands were shaking. Hot water ran over my knuckles. "I know how she is." "Hey," he turned me around, looked at me. "Are you mad?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the pot through the kitchen window. I wanted to tell him that his mother had dismantled me piece by piece over 2 years, and he'd handed her the tools. I wanted to tell him about Dr. Wynne, about the journal, about the 63 entries documenting every time I'd been made to feel invisible in my own home. But I looked at his face, that handsome, oblivious, infuriating face, and I saw something I'd never noticed before. He wasn't confused. He wasn't clueless. He knew exactly what had happened tonight. He'd seen the candles, the dress, the table. He'd chosen his mother anyway. And now he was standing here, asking me if I was mad, not because he cared about my answer, but because he needed me to say no. He needed me to be okay so that he could be comfortable. "I'm not mad," I said. He smiled, that half smile, the one I used to love. "Good. You're the best, Ash." He went to bed. I stood in the kitchen at 11 p.m. and ate a slice of my own birthday cake alone. It was perfect. Moist, rich, the ganache silky and bittersweet. I'd nailed it. Nobody would ever know. I wrapped the rest of the cake and put it in the fridge. The next morning, I found it in the trash. Brandon had thrown it away. "It was taking up too much room," he said when I asked. "Mom's bringing pie on Friday anyway." Something broke that morning. Not cracked, not bent. Broke. Clean, sharp, final, like the sound of a glass hitting a tile floor. I called Dr. Nguyen from the parking lot of the dental practice. She answered on the first ring, which she never did, which meant she must have heard something in my voice on her voicemail. "Ashley, what happened?" "He threw away my cake." Silence. Then, "Tell me." I told her. All of it. The birthday dinner, the pot roast, the candles I blew out myself, the cake I ate alone at 11 p.m., the trash can the next morning. "Ashley, I'm going to ask you something, and I want you to sit with it before you answer, okay?" "Okay." "If nothing changes, if Brandon continues exactly as he is, if Karen continues exactly as she is, can you live this life for another 5 years? Another 10? The parking lot was quiet. A cardinal landed on the hood of my car and stared at me through the windshield. "No," I said, and it was the truest word I'd spoken in 2 years. "Then we need to talk about what comes next." I went to work that day. I cleaned teeth. I smiled at patients. I did everything I always did. But underneath the surface, something had shifted. A current had changed direction. I was no longer trying to fix my marriage. I was trying to survive it. That Friday, Brandon's actual birthday, Karen arrived at 5 with a pecan pie and a card with a $100 bill inside. She also brought a woman I'd never seen before, mid-50s, bleached hair, strong perfume. "Ashley, this is my friend Donna. She's a realtor. I asked her to take a look at the apartment, just to get a sense of the market, you know, for when you two are ready to buy a house." I looked at Brandon. He was opening his birthday card. He didn't look up. "Karen," I said, "we're not looking to buy right now." Oh, I know, dear, but it never hurts to plan ahead. Donna, come look at the kitchen. I think with some updates, it could really show well. Donna walked through my home, my apartment, running her hand along the countertops, peering into closets, taking pictures on her phone. She spent 10 minutes in the bedroom Brandon and I shared, measuring the windows with a tape measure she pulled from her purse. I stood in the hallway and watched a stranger photograph my life. Karen directed her like a movie producer. Get the bathroom too, Donna, and the storage closet. It's bigger than it looks. Nobody asked my permission. Nobody asked if I was comfortable. Brandon ate pie in the living room and watched a YouTube video on his phone while his mother auditioned my home for sale. That night, after everyone left, I locked myself in the bathroom and called my mom. She picked up immediately. Ash, it's late, honey. You okay? Mom, I think I need to leave him. The silence on the other end lasted 3 full seconds. Then my mom, Jennifer Brennan, the woman who'd taught me to be nice, to be patient, to give people the benefit of the doubt, said something I will carry with me for the rest of my life. Baby, I've been waiting for you to say that for over a year. I slid down the bathroom wall and sat on the cold tile floor. You knew? I knew something was wrong. Every time I called, you sounded a little smaller, a little more careful with your words, like you were reading from a script. She paused. You stopped telling me about your cooking, Ash. That's when I knew. I pressed my hand over my mouth so Brandon wouldn't hear me cry. Listen to me, my mom said, her voice steady and fierce in a way I'd never heard before. You are not stuck. You have a job. You have income. You have a mother who will drive to Cedar Falls tonight. Tonight, Ashley, if you need me. I can't just leave. We have a lease. A joint account, the savings. How much is in savings? About $8,400 last time I checked. Okay, do you have your own account? No, everything's joint. Open one, tomorrow. Transfer half, that's $4,200. That's yours. Don't tell Brandon. Mom, it feels like protecting yourself, because that's what it is. I sat on that bathroom floor for 20 minutes after we hung up. The tile was cold against my legs. I could hear Brandon snoring through the wall. The apartment was dark and quiet, and for the first time, it didn't feel like home. It felt like a cage with nice curtains, lace ones I hadn't chosen. The next morning, Saturday, I drove to a bank branch on University Avenue that Brandon and I had never used. I opened a personal checking account in my name only. I transferred $4,200 from our joint savings. The teller, a young woman named Michelle, processed it without comment, but when she handed me the receipt, she looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You're all set, ma'am. That money's safe." I don't know if she could tell. Maybe she saw my red eyes. Maybe she'd seen it before, women walking in on Saturday mornings, moving money quietly, starting over in small, careful steps. Either way, her words felt like a hand on my shoulder. I drove home with the receipt folded in my wallet and a feeling I hadn't experienced in months. It took me a while to name it. It was power. Small, fragile, barely there, like a match struck in a dark room. But it was mine. I booked a double session with Dr. Nguyen for the following Thursday. When I sat down, I didn't cry. I didn't vent. I looked her in the eye and said, "I want to make a plan." She smiled, the first real smile I'd ever seen from her in our sessions. Good, let's start. Over the next 6 weeks, Dr. Nguyen and I built what she called a clarity plan, not an escape plan, she was careful about that word, but a step-by-step framework for reclaiming my life, my finances, and my sense of self. Every Thursday at 4:30, we'd sit in that plant-filled room, and she'd help me separate emotion from action, fear from fact. Step 1, document everything. I'd already been journaling, but now I got specific. Dates, times, exact quotes. I started using my phone to record conversations. Iowa is a one-party consent state, which means I could legally record any conversation I was part of without telling the other person. Dr. Nguyen didn't suggest this. My mom did. Jennifer Brennan, the woman who taught me to be nice, had apparently also done her legal research. Step 2, financial separation. I already had my personal account with the $4,200. Over the next month, I quietly redirected my direct deposit. Instead of my full paycheck going into the joint account, I split it, 60% joint, 40% personal. Brandon never checked the deposit amounts. He never checked anything. The bills got paid, the fridge stayed full, and that was the extent of his financial awareness. Step 3, consult a lawyer. My mom found her, a divorce attorney in Cedar Falls named Patricia Holden. She worked out of a small office on Searly Boulevard, and her Google reviews were full of women saying things like, "She fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself." I met with Patricia on a Tuesday afternoon during my lunch break in a consultation that cost me $150. Patricia was in her late 50s, silver-haired, with reading glasses on a chain around her neck and a handshake that could crush walnuts. She listened to my story for 20 minutes without interrupting. Then she leaned back in her chair and said, "Ashley, you don't need permission to leave a marriage that's making you disappear." "I know," I said, "but I need to do it right." "Then let's do it right." She walked me through Iowa's no-fault divorce process, filing, serving papers, the 90-day waiting period. She asked about assets, the joint savings, the apartment lease, my 401k through the dental practice. She asked about debt. Brandon had a truck payment, $387 a month, and a credit card with about $3,100 on it. All his spending. She asked about abuse. "Has he ever hit you?" "No." "Threatened you?" "Not physically." "Controlled your finances, isolated you from friends or family, made you feel afraid?" I paused. "He's never locked me in a room or taken my phone. But his mother has a key to our apartment that I didn't authorize. She enters without permission. She's thrown away my belongings. And Brandon? He dismisses every concern I raise. He tells me I'm overthinking. He tells me not to make it a thing." Patricia wrote something on her legal pad. "That's a pattern of emotional control, Ashley. It may not meet the legal threshold for a protective order, but it absolutely matters in terms of establishing the dynamic of this marriage." She told me to keep documenting, keep recording, and when I was ready, truly ready, to call her, and she'd file within 24 hours. I wasn't ready yet. Almost. But not yet, because I needed one more thing. I needed Brandon to show me, one final time, exactly who he was. Not so I could change him, not so I could save us. I needed it for myself, so that when I walked out the door, I'd never look back. I didn't have to wait long. July 3rd, the day before the 4th of July. I'd been planning a small gathering, just us, maybe a couple from Brandon's work, burgers on the little charcoal grill we kept on the patio. Simple, easy, mine. I mentioned it to Brandon on Monday. He said, "Sure, sounds fun." On Wednesday evening, I came home from work to find Karen sitting at my farmhouse table with a legal pad, making a list. "Oh, Ashley, perfect timing. I'm planning Brandon's 4th of July party. I've invited the Hendersons from my church, and Donna, you remember Donna, the realtor, and my cousin Rick and his wife. That's about 15 people. I figured we'd do it here since your patio is bigger than mine." I set my bag down. "Karen, I was already planning something small for tomorrow, just a few people." She waved her hand. "Well, now it's a few more. Brandon said it was fine." I looked at Brandon, who was on the couch, scrolling his phone. "Brandon?" He didn't look up. "It's just a barbecue, Ash. The more the merrier." Karen smiled at me. That smile, the one that looked warm if you didn't know better. "I'll handle the food, don't worry. You just make sure the apartment's clean." You just make sure the apartment's clean. Like I was the maid. Like this was her home and I was staff. Something inside me went very, very still. Not broken this time. Not cracked. Still. Like the surface of a lake before a storm. "Sure, Karen," I said. "I'll make sure everything's spotless." That night, while Brandon slept, I made 3 phone calls. The first was to my mom. "I'm ready," I said. She said, "I'll be there tomorrow morning." The second was to Patricia Holden. I left a voicemail. "It's Ashley Tate. File the papers." The third was to my landlord, a man named Gary who managed the building. I told him I'd be moving out by the end of the month and asked about breaking the lease. He said since both names were on it, I'd need to coordinate with Brandon, but my half of the early termination fee would be $575. I said I'd drop off a check. Then I stayed up until 3 a.m. I packed, quietly, methodically, the way Dr. Nguyen had taught me to approach hard things, one step at a time, no emotion in the action, save the feelings for later. I filled 3 suitcases with my clothes, my important documents, my grandmother's jewelry. I boxed up my cookbook collection, 42 books I'd been collecting since I was 16. I took my copper pots down from the rack above the stove and wrapped them in dish towels. I took the blue apron with the lemons. I took the wedding photos off the walls. Every single one. I left the farmhouse table. I built it with my own hands, refinished it, loved it. But it was too heavy to move alone, and more than that, I didn't want it anymore. It held too many dinners I'd cooked for people who never tasted them. Let Karen eat her pot roast on it. Let Brandon spill his indifference across its honey oak surface. I was done. By 6 a.m. on July 4th, the apartment looked like a museum exhibit about a marriage that used to exist. Half-empty closets, bare walls, suitcases by the bedroom door. My kitchen, my beautiful sage green kitchen, was stripped. No copper pots, no lemon apron, no spice rack. I'd taken every spice, every herb, every bottle of vanilla extract I'd ever bought. The kitchen was just a room now. Counters, cabinets, and nothing else. Brandon woke up at 8. He stumbled into the kitchen, still half asleep, and stopped in the doorway. What the... Ash, where's all the stuff? I was sitting on the couch, fully dressed, my iced tea in my hand. My mom was parked outside. My suitcases were ready. Patricia Holden had filed the divorce papers at 8:01 a.m. Her office opened early on holidays for exactly these situations, she'd told me. I'm leaving, Brandon. He stared at me. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. Come on, what is this? This is me leaving. The divorce papers were filed this morning. My attorney's name is Patricia Holden. You'll be served within the week. His face went through 4 expressions in about 2 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, anger, and then something I'd never seen before. Fear. You're serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Ashley, come on. Whatever this is about, we can talk about it. Is this about my mom? Because I'll talk to her. You've had 2 years to talk to her, Brandon. You chose not to, every single time. That's not fair. You threw away my birthday cake. He blinked. What? The 3-layer chocolate cake I made for your birthday, the one I stayed up until 1 a.m. baking. You threw it in the trash because your mom was bringing pie. I needed fridge space. You needed fridge space. I let the words hang there. For your mother's pie. He ran his hand through his hair. He was starting to pace. Okay, I messed up. I'll apologize. I'll tell Mom to back off. Just don't do this. It's already done. That's when his phone rang. He looked at the screen. His mother, of course. He answered it on speakerphone without thinking. Force of habit, I suppose, because Karen always insisted on speakerphone so she could be part of the conversation. Brandon, honey, I'm on my way. I've got the potato salad and Donna's bringing her famous coleslaw. Tell Ashley to set up the patio chairs. We'll be there in 20. Brandon looked at me. I looked at him. Neither of us spoke. Brandon, you there? Yeah, Mom. Listen. Oh, and tell her I'm sorry about this morning. I know you two had a little fight yesterday. But you'll apologize, just for show, and she'll be fine. She always is. She'll probably have the whole kitchen set up by the time I get there. You know how she is. There it was, out loud, on speakerphone, in my living room. I'll apologize just for show, and she'll be fine. She always is. Brandon's face went white. He looked at me, and for the first time in our entire marriage, he saw me. Not the wife who cooked, not the woman who smiled and said, "It's fine." Me, standing there with my suitcases packed and my walls bare and absolutely nothing left to lose. "Mom," he said quietly, "don't come." "What? Don't be silly. I'm already in the car. I'll be there in—" "Mom, don't come." But Karen didn't listen. Karen never listened. 22 minutes later, I heard the key in the lock, that unauthorized, copied key, and the front door swung open. "Brandon, honey, tell her we're here. She'll whip something up." And Brandon, out of pure, desperate habit, said the words that sealed it. "Mom, don't worry. She'll feed us now. So what if I yelled at her this morning? I'll apologize just for show, and she'll run to the kitchen like always." He said it to calm Karen down. He said it because it was the script they'd always followed. The script where I was the predictable one, the reliable one, the one who always forgave and always cooked and always stayed. Karen stepped inside. She saw the bare walls, the empty kitchen, the suitcases. Brandon stepped in behind her. His half-smile died. 3 seconds of silence. 1, 2, 3. Then they both turned and bolted out the door. Karen's purse caught on the doorknob. Brandon tripped over her shoes in the hallway. They scrambled like the apartment was collapsing around them. And in a way, it was. The entire structure they'd built, the one where I was the foundation and they were the house, had just been demolished. I stood in my living room, holding my iced tea, and I didn't chase them. I didn't explain. I didn't apologize. My phone buzzed. A text from my mom. "I'm out front. Whenever you're ready, baby." I picked up my suitcases. I walked through the kitchen one last time, past the bare counter where my copper pots used to hang, past the spot where the spice rack used to be, past the sage green wall I'd painted with my own hands. I ran my fingers along the farmhouse table. Goodbye, I thought. You deserved better dinners. I locked the door behind me with my key, the original, the one that was actually mine, and I walked down the stairs into the July morning. My mom was standing by her car, arms open. I fell into them and I cried. Not sad tears, relief tears. The kind that come when you finally set down something so heavy you'd forgotten what your shoulders felt like without it. We loaded my suitcases into her trunk. We drove away from West 4th Street, from Cedar Falls, from the apartment that had been my cage for 2 years. The sun was coming up over the cornfields, and the sky was that impossible Iowa blue. And somewhere behind me, Brandon was calling my phone, over and over, and I let it ring. The divorce was finalized 93 days later. Patricia Holden was worth every penny. Brandon tried to contest it. Karen hired him a lawyer, paid for with her own savings, but there was nothing to contest. No kids, no house. The joint savings had $4,200 left in it, which we split evenly. Brandon kept the truck and his credit card debt. I kept my 401k, my copper pots, and my name, Ashley Brennan. I moved to Des Moines, got an apartment near my mom, a 1-bedroom on Grand Avenue with a kitchen so small you could touch both walls if you stretched your arms out. I painted the walls sage green. I hung my copper pots on a hook above the stove. I put on my blue apron with the lemons, and I made chicken marsala on a Tuesday night for no one but myself. It was perfect. Every bite. Brandon texted me once, about a month after the divorce was final. I told Mom she can't come over anymore. I set boundaries. Can we talk? I read it. I set my phone down. I didn't respond. Karen never contacted me directly, but I heard through the grapevine, Tyler, Brandon's old best man, who'd stayed friendly with me, that she'd started telling people I'd abandoned her son, that I was unstable, that the whole thing was a misunderstanding blown out of proportion by a therapist who filled Ashley's head with nonsense. I didn't correct the record. I didn't need to. The people who mattered, my mom, Dr. Wynne, Patricia, Michelle the bank teller who'd looked at me with knowing eyes, they knew the truth. Last Thanksgiving, I hosted dinner at my apartment. My mom came, my Aunt Linda came, the one who'd given us the gold-rimmed plates, which I'd taken with me. My friend Carla from the dental practice came with her daughter. 5 women around a small table, eating herb-crusted lamb chops with roasted garlic mashed potatoes and a from-scratch gravy I'd reduced twice for depth. Nobody told me it was fine. Nobody compared it to their mother's version. Carla's daughter, who was 9, took one bite and said, "Miss Ashley, this is the best thing I've ever eaten in my whole life." I laughed so hard I almost cried. After everyone left, I stood in my tiny kitchen washing dishes, my dishes, in my apartment, on my terms. And I thought about that question Dr. Nguyen had asked me a lifetime ago. When was the last time you did something in your own home without wondering if Brandon or Karen would approve? I looked around. The sage green walls, the copper pots, the lemon apron hanging on its hook, the leftovers in the fridge that nobody would throw away. Every day, I thought, every single day. And that's the thing about leaving. People think the hardest part is walking out the door. It's not. The hardest part is all the years before. The years you spend convincing yourself that the cage is a home, that the silence is peace, that being small is the same as being safe. The door was always unlocked. I just had to remember I was the one with the key.